Paranoia, need destroyer. Really? A need destroyer? Paranoia? Is being paranoid a bad thing? What if I told you paranoia really meant the ability to link events that seemingly are unconnected? So that if you're paranoid, you're able to connect events that other people can't. And believe it or not, that's what it's going to take to satisfy our needs. It's not a need destroyer. Paranoia is going to wake you up once you understand that you got to connect the dots. That's the purpose of a special teaching tool I created called the Ultimate Schematic. I've identified all of the most important pieces of the puzzle so that we can avoid being tricked and fooled and going down rabbit holes that are worthless. If you take a quick look at my special teaching tool, and I just recently did an update on that, the Ultimate Schematic Update 2. If we take a quick look at it, I'm going to imagine that here it is on your screen here, where this is the first stage of knowledge. These are the first two boxes. Then in the middle we got the two boxes. This is what we're doing and haven't done to us. And then the last two boxes are what we got. The top part is positive, the bottom is negative. Now what we're going to do on the negative part of this schematic, where we have problems, is to make this simple. There's either problems that are 100% within our control, I label that 103, and problems outside our control, piece 104. I identified, again, 281 pieces. I just assigned numbers to them so I could put those on the schematic, and then you can reference back to where they are. If you go to my update, you'll see I listed all the piece numbers down below so you can see what those piece numbers are. Just take a screenshot of it and save it. So what I want to do is make this simple. Let's not complicate things. Let's say our problems are either 100% within our control or 100% not within our control. Now the way we're being tricked and fooled by the people in charge is they control people who monopolize this industry, and they convince them that most of our 103s, problems within our control based on what we do, our lifestyle choices, are really 104s and they're outside of control, and therefore they are in the domain of allopathic medicine. You see, when we have a problem that's outside our control, there's nothing we can do. We can go back to the second stage of knowledge and we say, well, wait a second, the 104s come from 100. These are accidents and acts of nature. So this is one way our environment can affect us. Our environment can also affect us because there are 14 needs that we have to satisfy. One of them is an environment, and we can pollute our environment, so we can also have a problem if our environment is polluted. However, whether the earth is round or flat has no significance in the second stage of knowledge. Therefore, it doesn't cause any problems in the third stage of knowledge, which means that that's a rabbit hole we don't want to go down. We've got a lot of problems. If we didn't have any problems, I'd say, yeah, let's have fun going down every rabbit hole we can think of. But when we go down a rabbit hole that doesn't solve any problems, it's a distraction. It's a blatant distraction. It's a psyop, psychological operation, to keep us distracted. We're always being distracted by rabbit holes. The biggest rabbit hole we have is the allopathic rabbit hole. Now I label that as 106. If you look at my schematic, there are the things we do in the second stage of knowledge. I gotta look at the camera every now and then, make sure I'm in the middle. Second stage of knowledge, and then there are the things we get in the third stage of knowledge. So the problems that are within our control are based on the things we do. There's 12 essential needs and 2 additional temporary needs. So there's 2 groups of needs we must satisfy. This is important to understand. And if we satisfy those, we won't have any problems. If we don't satisfy them, we'll have problems, and that's what the 103s are for. Again, our problem is what we have is a sick system where the people who own and control everything, that own the government, they own the educational systems, they passed laws in the late 1930s here in America giving allopathic medicine a monopoly on an industry that should not even exist. We should not have a treatment peddling industry for problems that are within our control. The problem is they take our experts and they convince them that no, these problems are due to inappropriate signals. It has nothing to do with your lifestyle factors, and yet you're not going to study those, so you're not going to know any better, right? And we're all making the same mistake, so you'll never put the connection that we shouldn't eat cooked food and animals in the wrong food, right? Of course not. So what they do is they put what allopathic medicine is doing is they're in the 106. That's the doorway in between the negative causes and the negative effects. And remember, the negative effect box, that's our feedback system. So what allopathic medicine is doing in 106 is they're interfering with the body's communication system. Most drugs fall in the class of blockers and inhibitors. The blockers occupy receptor sites, and the inhibitors kill the hormones and the enzymes. It's a lock and key communication system. The keys are the hormones and the enzymes. The locks are the receptor sites. So they got drugs that won't allow the keys to get in there, and then they got drugs that will kill the keys so there won't be any keys. Now the body doesn't communicate to itself. It's magic, remember. These people who control everything, they're magicians, they're masters of illusion. So 106 is created as an illusion so we don't have the negative effects from making the mistakes. It's an illusion. And that's a rabbit hole we don't want to go down. We don't want to look for logical fallacies in these systems because they already have an invalid structure. And I label this as piece 8.2. It's one of my most exciting revelations. Don't go looking for logical fallacies in systems that already have an invalid structure or might have an invalid structure. So when we use logic to solve problems, there's two tests they have to pass. One is the structure. Allopathic medicine does not pass that test. They're guilty of modus ponens. They're putting the cart before the horse for a problem within their control. They're treating 103s as 104, and they're treating the symptoms. If the problem is within our control, you don't stay in the effect box. You don't put the cart before the horse. Modus ponens. Invalid structure. Who cares about the logical fallacies? You can go on and on and on about how good this drug does, and it doesn't. And look, we've got the studies. Who cares? Who cares about the logical fallacies? You already failed the most important test. The first test we should always make everyone take. Do you have an invalid structure? In this case, allopathic medicine obviously does not have a valid structure because they're treating problems that are lifestyle related. They don't know that. They even admit cause we don't know for at least 90% of our diseases. And then they blame germs and genes and old age for the other 10% so they don't look like the fools they really are. We can't say we don't know 100% of the time, so we'll blame it on these things. And all those are going to take away your responsibility. That's why our brains are bombarded by bullshit. Because when you can control what people know, you can control what they do. And now we don't know what to eat. Why are you having to learn how to eat raw food now? We should already know this. But society attacked early, and it's been attacking for 3,000 generations. That's how long we've been eating cooked food. And then the people who rule the world usurped the priesthood and the educational system over 3,000 years ago, according to Yusuf Mullins in his book, The Curse of Canaan. And what do these guys do? They're always distracting us. It's a rabbit hole. If a medical doctor tries to show you all of his studies that prove his drugs work, throw that shit out the door, the window, whatever, because they already failed the structure. Remember, when we use logic, there's two criteria that must be met. There are two requirements that must be met. There are two tests that everybody has to pass if we're using logic. One is the contents. What are the details with the protocol, the system, or the belief system? And then what is the structure? Got a train and you got a track. The track is always one way, and the train is on here. The train is complicated. Do you have enough knowledge to find the logical fallacies in conventional medicine? No. Can you find the invalid structure? Yeah! Modus ponens! Treating the problem. It's within our control. Shame, shame, shame. And shame on all you stupid doctors that are doing this. When are you guys going to wake up? If you guys woke up, we could get out of this nightmare we have. What's it going to take for you guys to take responsibility? Can a small group of you guys organize the rest of you guys? You guys could actually change everything. In fact, Yusuf Mullins mentions in his book, Murder by Injection, that this is what he realized after 40 years. The power of life and death falls in the hands of our doctors. And this ties back into the Bible. For by sorceries will all nations be deceived. It ties into the Temple of Solomon, according to the Muslims, that there are magic books under the temple. Black magic used against us. Drugs used against us. It's all black magic. It's an illusion. It's a magic act. It's a trick. So, we have to be able to connect dots. We don't want to go down rabbit holes. We don't want to get distracted. The allopathic rabbit hole is the biggest of all. Remember, there's two things that the people who rule the world don't want us to do. The number one thing they don't want us to do is get healthy. Why? Because if we get healthy, they disappear. They can't control healthy people. If we all had adequate biophoton levels, no one would join what's called a Progerian class, and that's what they need to control us. Watch my video on feudalism. I'll put a link down below if you want to understand more about how that works. but there are rabbit holes all over the place. So the purpose of my tool is to say, look, the biggest rabbit hole we got, the biggest distraction we have is when we focus on the negative effect box and think that those problems are within our control. And this ties into Epictetus, it ties into serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. We lack the wisdom to know the difference between a problem that's within our control and outside of control, and we're being duped by our so-called experts because they don't know. They're taking the first step heading east and looking for a sunset. Mona's ponens, putting the cart before the horse. So that's a big rabbit hole. Now let me just briefly talk about the flat earth, because I did a video the other day when I thought about it for the first time and like everything I think about, once I think about it a little bit more, I can articulate a little bit better. The thing about the flat earth rabbit hole is that it doesn't solve any problems. So we don't want to waste any time looking at logical fallacies in systems that don't solve any problems. That's the problem with the flat earth theory. It doesn't solve any problems. There's only two ways it can possibly solve a problem. One is what some people are claiming. Well, if the earth is flat, God had to create it. As above, so below, everything is round except us. We're special. We're flat earthers. Don't you see? God had to create it. Everything above is round, everything below is round. We're flat. We're special. It's a distraction. It doesn't solve any problems. Don't go down that rabbit hole. What difference does it make if the earth is flat or if it's round? And I can illustrate that on my special teaching tool. Now, I did you guys a favor when I first talked about this. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. Would you stop jumping on me, dang it? I gave you the benefit of the doubt by saying that it could be part of our environment, which is piece 33. And I have idiots out there going, oh, Illuminati, Freemasons. Give me a break. My God. Man. Anyway, that's just the piece I labeled it. So we can have a problem in knowledge if we pollute our environment. But that's one of our needs. There are 12 essential needs. We need an environment to sustain us because we're living systems. And there's 11 ways we interact with our environment. So those are our 12 essential needs. We got to make sure we don't pollute our environment. We're not doing that. So we can have problems in the negative C box because of what piece 92 is doing. That's when we have polluted environment. So we actually have 103.92. And then we can also have problems from the environment if it's an act of nature. So that would be 104 from 100. And whatever we got comes back around, so it's going to be how we start our journey in the first stage. But there's nothing we can do in the middle that's going to affect the earth being flat or round. So it's always going to start in the first stage and end in the third stage the same. And it's not a problem of knowledge. It's what we got. The only problem of knowledge we have from the environment is if we pollute it or we have an act of nature. Now, there are a lot of points made that, well, we're being lied to. It just illustrates that we're being lied to. And if we're going to use that as a premise, then that points to piece number 3. And I agree. That's what I say is the number one source for false knowledge. Remember, I identified 21 main problems of knowledge. 2 forms of ignorance, 12 sources of false knowledge, 7 wellness factors. The number one source for false knowledge is piece number 3. That represents the darkest of us, the sickest of us, the psychopaths who rule the world. And we have to be aware of piece number 3. But guess what happens with almost everybody who's finds piece number 3? They go back to piece number 2, which is false knowledge. And they scream at everybody, false knowledge, you don't know. We got a fox garden hen house. All we got to do is tell everybody about the fox garden hen house, not realizing that they've just gone up a level in Plato's cave. They're not out of the cave yet. Can't get out of the cave until you get reconnected. That's why everything's a distraction unless you're getting reconnected. Once we get reconnected and we go back down into the Plato's cave, we got to have people come up, and some of them have to go up levels. So sometimes we need to show them, well, wait a second, the reason why you don't believe what I'm saying is true is because we have a fox garden hen house. We can't trust our own belief system. So that can be beneficial to know that, but we don't want to put too much attention on the things that are attacking us. We want to focus on getting out of the cave. On what do we got to do? We got to get reconnected. We got to stop cooking our food. We got to correct the fall of mankind. Not really sure what I want to say next, to be honest with you. It's not like I forgot what I'm going to say. It's because this is off the top of my head. I'm just going with it. All I can say is I'm getting tired of that fly or whatever it is keep landing on me. So let's go back and let's look at what we got. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. It's a distraction. Why? Because there's nothing we can do to affect it, and then it's not causing any problems. And I'm talking about the flat earth theory. So it's a distraction. And I love puzzles. I love intellectually trying to figure things out. But don't waste your time on something that doesn't solve a problem. We live in hell. And the biggest problem I think many people have is they really don't know there's a solution that gets rid of heart disease and cancer and diabetes and arthritis. It will ultimately get rid of war and crime and violence. Why? Because it goes back to the first cause. Most of you bozos don't know how important that first cause is. Cooking our food has amazing ramifications that most people just can't wrap their brain around. But if you study people like I have, who found this knowledge and was compelled for the rest of their life to share with people, they witnessed the transformation these people go through, and they know that if the whole world did this, it would be different. Things would change. It would change our mentality. We wouldn't compete. We would want to cooperate. We would want to help one another without expecting something in return. A barter system isn't even right because it's an exchange mentality. Don't you see how important it is not to cook our food? It is the root cause. Everything else is a distraction. Everything is a distraction if you're still eating cooked food. Now, I'm not saying we don't want to work downstream. If you've watched any of my videos, I say two things we got to do based on two groups of needs. Go upstream, get reconnected. Go downstream, deal with all the damage done to our anatomy, environment, and society. Big time. We gotta undo the damage done to society. That's the only thing we need to focus on that's been done. I don't care who's doing it. I don't want to punish anybody. That's the wrong mindset. Once you get reconnected, you realize that everything we're doing is a distraction unless all of us can get reconnected. So, get paranoid, connect some dots, get educated. With detoxification comes de-indoctrination. You got to realize how the world works, because we do have to realize what kind of downstream work we have to do. Now, I realize a lot of us just aren't ready for that now. Not a big deal. This threatens our belief system. We have way too many references that make us think the way things are. On so many subjects, it's mind-boggling. Remember the two main things they don't want us to know. Number one, not how to get healthy. Number two, who's getting us sick. It's the psychopaths. They have to keep us sick. And we have to undo what they've done. Doesn't matter if they're white, if they're Jew, if they're black, if they're red. Darn it. Or if it's that stupid fly that won't leave me alone because I'm sweating out here and it's thirsty. It's a distraction. That's what they're always going to do. It's always a distraction, always a distraction, always a distraction. If it isn't solving a problem, don't waste your time with it, flat earthers. What problem does it solve? It proves that there's a God. How does believing in a God solve a problem? How does believing the earth is flat solve a problem? Answer me that, please. Wasn't that long ago where everyone believed the earth was flat, and we had a lot of gods, and a lot of them were only monotheistic. Still had a lot of problems, didn't we? It's not the solution. Damn it. Stop cooking that food. How do you do it? You take a solid food vacation. You get excited. You listen to the Dr. Robe interview. That will pump you up. Watch the Deborah Duncan show. That's going to pump you up. Watch the seminar I put together, the first step. Take notes like you're in my classroom, and you got to pass a test. Your life depends upon it. And if you pass the test, you're in for a treat.